Did you know that the challenges that you're facing right now could very well be a blocked chakra or an energy imbalance? Because here's the thing. One thing we don't realize is that at the crux of everything going on, behind everything is energy. And so when we have something show up in our lives, 9 times out of 10, it's not about the physical symptom, and it's not even about the physical result. It's about understanding the energy behind the whole thing. And when we come to know this, we can learn how to heal ourselves from the inside out. So let's talk about exactly what this looks like. Hey guys, it is Ashley from theawakenstate.net, and today I want to talk about chakra imbalances, because let me tell you, when it comes to knowing yourself better, understanding if you have a chakra imbalance will give you so much clarity on how to move forward and what you can do about it, how to literally heal it and completely move forward with your life, which is at the end of the day what we all want, right? So let's be honest here. When it comes to looking at our challenges and our frustrations and, maybe a negative situation that keeps showing up in our lives, a lot of the times we don't realize that we can connect this back to energy. Now, if I were to just give you one of those beautiful visuals in my head that's coming through, is I want you to think about it like this. So normally how most of the world thinks is we think about physical results. We think in terms of the physical material world. A lot of us are only thinking about the most outer layer of reality. And that's how we've been conditioned to learn. Now, when we think about how energy works, and energy healing works for that matter, we think differently. We think about things in terms of layers. And more so, if you were just imagine it as like layers of consciousness. And so when we think about having a thought, there's an energy behind that thought. So what we don't realize is when we speak, we have vibration. And we have vibration we're admitting into the world. And so when we think about a thought that we're having, behind it is energy. So behind your emotion is energy. Behind your action is energy. Behind your belief is energy. And behind your physical result is energy. When we go into our minds and think about this more from a place of layers, we have to see it like this. Energy, thought, emotion, action, repeated thought, repeated emotion, pattern. And that's how our mind works. If you were to just think about how everything is going through a filter, and everything first starts out as energy. Energy moves into motion of a thought, moves into the motion of the feeling, moves into the motion of that feeling, transfers into action. If you were to think about every time you get a certain feeling, you're like, I should do this. I need to do this. You're taking action. And that action was coming from a thought. That thought was coming from energy. So how energy healing works is we start from energy. And then we move into the internal state of consciousness and move outward with the mind-body connection. And that's how it's really working behind the scenes. And this is a strong thing of how I teach and what I teach when it comes to energy healing work. We're not just waving our wands and just hoping things work. We're working from the mind-body connection. Because when the mind-body connection is working, that's when healing truly occurs. It is sustainable healing because you're working with your mind, body, spirit, soul, and the whole system. You're taking actions. You're influencing the entire pattern. Now, that is to say, when we have imbalances, what is happening behind the scenes? Well, the energy is misaligned, and it's causing misalignment in the thoughts, misalignment in our feelings, misalignment in the actions we take. And if you were to just see it as simple as that, a lot of the times what we don't realize is that when we start to change the thoughts, when we start to look at the emotions differently, when we start to change the energy, it all windfalls because it started from the thought, it started from the energy. So you can see here how it works in terms of going back to the energetic root cause, not the symptom. We're not putting a Band-Aid on the symptom. We're not putting a Band-Aid on the result. We're not going after the result. We're not changing physically. We're changing from the energetic level outward. This is a different way of looking at healing because of this. So when it comes to looking at chakra imbalances, I just want to go over some really common ones so that you can start to see how this plays out in terms of the mind-body connection. Now, here's the thing. When we have issues in the root chakra, for example, imbalances can show up in the form of our relationship to money. It can show up with how we feel supported in life. It can also show up a lot in our physical reality, such as our physical home. Now, when we look at how root chakra imbalances play out, you might be starving yourself and have a hard time feeding yourself because when your root is completely off center, you are neglecting yourself. And when you're neglecting yourself, the root chakra is off, which makes the whole system off, and so forth. So we can see here how a root imbalance is often created around instability, lack of support, and lack of safety. And this triggers the fight, flight, freeze response. So when a root chakra is imbalanced, it is affecting the critical areas of our survival brain. Now, when we look at something else, such as the sacral chakra is influencing our emotions, our creativity, our sexuality, and our sexual identity. So these areas will be influenced the most. So if you have issues in the bedroom, if you have issues with creativity, if you have issues with your sexual identity, if you have issues with your emotions and feeling emotionally out of control, emotional outbursts, or feeling that your emotions are outside of your control, and so forth. All of these things are stemming from the sacral chakra. Now, in terms of a practical side, the sacral chakra governs a lot about how we receive. And it really is an indicator of our giving and receiving dynamic, because you can see how when you look at the heart chakra, or not the heart chakra, the sacral chakra, you can see that it's influencing creation and pleasure. And so pleasure is a big part of the sacral chakra and knowing ourselves better in relationship to how do we feel good? How do we feel good in life? How do we receive in life? And so forth. Now, in the solar plexus, those imbalances will often be about your identity, such as your career. So if you have issues in your career, if you have issues in your identity, or if you have issues with your ego, such as being very egocentric or very dogmatic or very controlling, all of these things will show up in the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is dominated around our ego and our sense of identity of who we are as a person. Now, in the heart chakra, we might have issues in our relationships. We might have a lot of drama. We might have a lot of insecurity or paranoia, or maybe we get jealous a lot. This can also be influenced by not just our relationship to other people, but also our relationship with ourselves, such as how do you treat yourself? And are you treating yourself poorly or good? Are you in a good relationship with yourself, or are you in a bad relationship with yourself? Now, when we also look at chakra imbalances, we can really connect the dots here between the physical and the mental and the emotional and the spiritual by looking at, okay, so here's a good example. Let's use relationships, because everyone can relate to this. When we think about how does this play out, we have our thoughts about relationships, our feelings about relationships, our beliefs about relationships, and how we take action in a relationship. And those repeated thoughts and repeated emotions become our beliefs about a relationship. And that belief about a relationship transfers from the internal to the external world and shows you how you will attract a relationship. And it was all coming from the heart chakra. So you can see here how the heart chakra, thoughts about relationships, feeling about relationships, actions about relationships, actions repeated thoughts repeated, thoughts and emotions and feelings and beliefs about a relationship, your beliefs, how you perceive a relationship, and then those create your results. When we look at this model, it becomes a very easy way to pinpoint where we are out of misalignment. So I want to just wrap this up here because I want you to learn even more about the chakras before we close out. But what I want to say here is this is why I've created the chakra quiz, because I'm telling a lot of things to you and throwing a lot at you. So when it comes to knowing the chakras better, I created this quiz where it can pinpoint your dominant chakra that is out of alignment. So a lot of times we're focused on one key area of our lives and that transfers out to every area of our life through that chakra. And so what I've done is I've created an in-depth quiz to help you figure out which chakra is imbalanced and some tips for you on how you can get started healing it. So this is at our chakra quiz. It is theawakenedstate.net/chakra/quiz. And I will leave a link down below for you in the description. And to just continue on with our chakra series, when it comes to the throat is all about how you're communicating. So when we have chakra imbalances in the throat chakra, it is often influencing how we express ourselves. So we might have a fear of being seen, a fear of being heard. We might have visibility wounds or trouble feeling heard. We might feel invisible. We might feel misunderstood and so forth. A lot of times this chakra is all about effectively communicating what you want and what you need. And are you communicating that in your life, in your relationships, and who you are? Or are you lying to yourself? So a huge piece that's a chakra misalignment in the throat chakra is all about lying to yourself and lying in general because you're being inauthentic to who you are. In the third eye, this is all about a chakra imbalance around your intuition and most importantly, how you are perceiving things. One of the hidden gems in the third eye chakra is not just about our psychic abilities. It's about really looking at how are you staying stuck in limited beliefs? How are you staying stuck in limited thinking? And how can you move out of that? So a lot of the times this chakra will be a little bit harder to pinpoint because it often will display itself in a different way. And a lot of the times it shows up as escapism. It can show up in the form of trying to escape reality, having addictions, having drug addiction, having alcohol addiction, having some form of obsession where we're obsessing about something so frequently and so much that we've lost touch with reality. It will often be an indicator of how we've got out of touch with reality. A lot of the times in a third eye chakra imbalance, we're heavily ungrounded, we're heavily spacey, and most importantly, we probably don't feel safe. So we might feel very ungrounded and we might feel kind of like topsy-turvy and airy-fairy. And a lot of the times it's just a sign to get back into our body. But this chakra imbalance will really display itself as a form of escaping reality. In the crown chakra, we have our beliefs. Now, one of the hugest ways that we can have chakra imbalances in this particular chakra is often about not believing in ourselves. Not believing in ourselves, not trusting ourselves, and most importantly, not trusting in a higher power. So how this will often show up is we don't trust spiritual truth. Or if we have a very overactive crown chakra, it will be that we're so invested in spirituality that we ignore reality. So it'll be spiritual addiction is what I like to call it. Where we're spiritually addicted, we are at a point where we're fasting, we're neglecting our body, we're forgetting to eat, we're forgetting to be a human and do human things. We're so obsessed with the spiritual path and the spiritual journey that we have kind of lost touch with our physical world. This will also display itself in the form of, occults and or cults and basically, spiritual narcissism and all of those kind of concepts that are more like it has all these belief systems where we have very rigid ideas. And so the crown chakra is often imbalanced when we look at our sense of beliefs and limited beliefs, and most importantly, trusting ourselves. So to summarize this, I have the chakra quiz for you, and it is a great way to understand if you have a chakra imbalance, if you're curious about learning about the chakras, or if you just want an in-depth chakra guide. I highly recommend signing up for the chakra quiz, and I will leave a link down below for you for that. And it will help you exactly pinpoint what is the dominant chakra that is imbalanced. So I created this quiz with a very key mindset, which is, how can I show you that what you are focused on the most is the chakra that is imbalanced? And so that's why I go really in depth in the quiz on these core questions that is going to highlight for you exactly where there is work to do. Okay, so I hope you deeply enjoyed this in-depth view of chakra imbalances. And if you're interested in the quiz, I highly recommend downloading it and trying it out. I'd love to know your results. So feel free to drop a comment and leave me your chakra results. Let's hear it. And I can even give you some tips and tricks if you like. Okay, so if you guys like our videos, please hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.